Here's the problem. Russia leans on Black Sea resupply to feed artillery in the Kherson sector. Agitation. One Ukrainian strike erased 500 tons of ammo and cut frontline firepower by about 20% for days. Solve? A low-cost deep strike playbook that forces Moscow to spend big, move air defenses, and reroute convoys through exposed corridors. Watch how a $5,000 platform beats CIWS jamming and decoys. Then see how that 4-minute loss rippled into truck bottlenecks and new strike windows. Next segment, the refinery campaign that compounds the squeeze. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. You saw the flash at sea, miles inland, guns stuttered. Why did one hull matter that much? Because the Kherson sector ate ammunition on a clock. The supply rhythm ran through the Black Sea. Ships moved bulk loads to coastal hubs for fast turnarounds. Trucks then hauled pallets to forward depots, where batteries drew daily rations of shells and propellant. When that cycle stayed tight, artillery crews could fire to their planned rates. When it slipped, tubes cooled and targets lived longer. Russia leaned hard on maritime resupply because rail nodes and bridges took steady pressure. That pushed more tonnage onto amphibious landers shuttling between safe harbors and small piers. Rapucha-class ships became the workhorses. Each could carry vehicles and hundreds of tons of cargo, roll on, roll off, quick to unload. But the same trait that made them efficient made them a choke point. Fewer ships, bigger stacks per voyage, tighter timing. If one missed its slot, the ground crews felt it before noon. On paper, defenses hid that risk. The ships mounted close-in weapon systems, good against fast threats at short range. The coast stacked Pantsir and Tor batteries to catch low flyers and cruise missiles. Helicopters roamed the approaches, scanning for small contacts and stray drones. Operators trusted the web, logged the escorts, and kept the schedule. The flaw sat in concentration. The loads packed high-density propellant, fuses, and shells into steel boxes and vehicle bays. One hit in the wrong compartment could turn the manifest into a furnace. And because departures bunched to meet land demand, the calendar left no slack. The chain worked in 3 steps. First, pier intake. Dock crews moved pallets straight from the ramp to forklifts, checked lot numbers, and sent hazardous crates to a separate stack. Second, depot staging. A rear area warehouse tallied by caliber and charge. Then pre-built mixed loads so front units received what they would fire that day and the next. Third, convoy dispatch. Trucks departed in waves aligned with firing plans, often before dawn, so batteries refilled after morning missions. The math tied to artillery consumption. If a brigade aimed for several hundred rounds per day, the convoy size and departure times mirrored that rate. It left little room for delay. In the days before the strike, the logbook showed gaps. Weather and interdiction forced a missed convoy, so depot stocks dipped. To catch up, planners compressed the ship schedule. A Rapucha rolled in with a high-value load. Roughly 500 tons of mixed propellant bags and shells to refill 2 hubs and seed a third. That moment put outsized weight on one hull. The defense umbrella still looked strong, but radar settings trimmed low signatures. Electronic warfare focused on standard control links, and air patrols stretched thin to cover more sea lanes after earlier strikes pushed traffic south and east. Cross-theater hits on rail yards and depots had already shifted more throughput onto the Black Sea route, so each voyage carried more risk and more reward. When that shipment disappeared, the issue was timing, not total stock. The window between expected arrival and the next planned fire missions collapsed. Batteries that would have fired at full rate held back to conserve. Rear depots rationed mixed charges. A 30-kilometer stretch saw a pause as units waited for the next road train to form. The drop in fire measured around a fifth for days, not because the country ran dry, but because the clock slipped and the buffer was gone. The chain had a single weak node, and it failed at the worst minute. So the question lands here. What low-cost platform slipped through that defense web at sea and kicked off the landside shortfall that followed? What beats CIWS jamming and a helicopter with a $5,000 price tag? A boat that brings its own swarm and forces the entire defense stack to waste seconds on the wrong target. The Barracuda USV was the delivery truck, 20 feet long, low in the water, and able to sprint at 30 knots. Strapped to the deck were 4 Wild Hornet FPV drones, each wired to a PG-7VL-shaped charge, small, fast, and cheap. The mission was simple on paper. Get close enough to release the drones, then push them through the narrow window where a ship's sensors, guns, and jammers overlap, but don't quite meet. The run started under the radar line. The Barracuda used its small profile to ride the chop, throwing minimal wake and feeding only a thin return to the coastal search sets. Once inside the outer screen, the Wild Hornets lifted to 10 feet above the surface and flew a reverse helix. Tight spirals that shaved the water and kept the radar tracking gate confused. That low path mattered. Sea clutter forces radars to filter hard. A tiny quadrotor that skims spray looks like noise until it is too close for comfort. Fire control needs a stable track and clean angles. The drones refused to give it either. Defenders reacted in layers. A helicopter broke from its patrol to vector in. The ship's electronic warfare suite threw up a TK-25E blanket. FPV cameras fuzzed out, GPS went dead, and link latency spiked. But the Hornets didn't rely on one link. Inertial navigation kept them on the programmed lines using gyros and accelerometers, and the Barracuda punched a short-range, high-gain directional signal to cut through the jam at the last 100 meters. It wasn't perfect. It was enough to regain control for the final dive. The sequence turned into workload management. The Barracuda ran straight to pull the first look and draw the CIWS tracers stitched the water, then reached for the hull. 2 Hornets peeled wide, forcing the guns to slew and commit. The other 2 cut shallow angles along the ship's quarter, inside the narrow arc where gun mounts have the least room to traverse. Naval guns want a steady, high-speed inbound. These gave them near-surface, low RCS targets with short latency guidance. That combination degrades kill odds for both CIWS and shoulder-fired missiles because sensors struggle near the waterline, and operators fight reflections and fragment clouds. 1 Hornet reached the container stack. The PG-7VL warhead exploited the Monroe effect, collapsing a copper liner into a high-velocity jet. That jet formed at extreme temperature and velocity, then focused into a pencil-thin penetrator. Half an inch of steel on a standard ammo box was not a barrier. The jet punched through, flashed the interior, and met propellant. Propellant burns fast when unconfined. In a crated load, it turns into a hot flood that jumps gaps and lights fuses. Another Hornet struck a vehicle bay with mixed charges. Each ignition added overpressure and drove flame deeper below deck. Now the defense had a different problem. The ship dumped flares, launched last-ditch missiles, and kept the CIWS cycling. Ready-use ammo bled out in seconds. The helos intercept lost value with targets already inside the ship's skin. Fire crews tried to isolate compartments, but the heat raced along cable runs and through ventilators. A cook-off began. Separate pops turned into a steady roar. Plates lifted, seams split, and the deck at the strike point disappeared in a white-out flash. From first contact to mortal damage took about 4 minutes. The hull sagged as internal frames gave way. Power flickered, alarms overlapped, and the bow settled. The Barracuda never needed to ram. Its job ended the moment it forced the guns to look the wrong way and let the Hornets through. The explosion didn't end at sea. It forced a costly reshuffle on land and air, and the next moves to cover that gap came with a price Moscow had to pay fast. Watch the next segment on Ukraine's refinery and terminal strikes. The follow-on pressure that widens the logistics gap and keeps the guns hungry. This is where cost asymmetry becomes strategy. Spend little to force massive bills. In this war, the cheaper move sets tempo and drives decisions.